I mean, I think figuring out what the real problem is always a challenge, because a lot of times people will call and they'll sort of describe what the problem is, or they'll send an email and it's kind of cryptic and it's a little bit hard to interpret what's really the problem and what's really going on. So I think the first thing is trying to understand exactly what the problem is, what's really the issue. And then if you can get to the bottom of what really the issue is, obviously a lot easier to find the solution then. If you're not even quite sure what they're looking for, what they need.
Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the podcast by and for EO Nashville, where we talk about all the fun that we as entrepreneurs have starting, scaling, and getting out of businesses that we have started, hopefully selling them for lots and lots of money. And with me today, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Robert Hartline.
Good to be here. I'm good to have this guest today.
Very much so.
Thank you guys for having me.
Casey Riggs, longtime EO member.
Yep. I think I joined in 2017 or 18, so 7 or 8 years.
Okay. Very good. So how did EO find you, or you find EO?
Yeah, I was working for another law firm, left that law firm, started my own law firm with one other guy. And, I never really considered myself super entrepreneurial, but, at least I did leave a firm and start my own business. So I guess there's some level of entrepreneurism there. But I never really thought of something like EO. And I actually saw another lawyer that I knew the year before applied and got into EO. And I was like, wow, that's super cool. I didn't think they'd let lawyers in EO. So I applied the next year and, got in and started.
What's crazy about that story is Casey and I have known each other for a long time. And before he started his practice, I started this club called 4-Hour Work Club, based on Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week book. And we started meeting, I don't know if it was every month. It was just a group of misfits that were, I had a business, but he was working for somebody else. And we kind of kept meeting, like, what are we going to start? Because I wanted to do something new, and I started Call Proof as a result of that. And then you started your own firm out of that little experience. And I've gotten to know Casey all these years, and it's just fun sitting back and talking about, oh gosh, look at what we've built in all this time,
Yep. So that would have been like 2010. When did you start Call Proof?
2014.
14. Okay.
Yeah. So it was about 2013, 13, we were kind of meeting on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And you were, the firm you were at, you just had this, you knew you wanted to do something on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the original spark for you to go out on your own?
I mean, I think I always wanted to have my own thing growing up. I didn't know what that thing would be, but I wanted to sort of, own something, run something, control something. And, I was interested in really financial services and things like that. And when I got out of school, it seemed like the jobs I could find in that area were more sales oriented. And I really didn't want to do sales stuff. And so I was drawn to law because I worked for a consulting firm, and we would work with lawyers, and they weren't selling, they were advising. And I liked that advisory role. So I always had in the back of my mind that, I'd like to have my own thing. But when you get out of law school, you don't know how to practice law. And it's just really important to work somewhere and learn. And so, I got a job at a good firm in Louisville, Kentucky, and started working there. And ended up staying there for 9 years. But I mean, ultimately, I think I always just wanted my own thing. And, after 9 years, you sort of know what you're doing. You're still learning, but, it's long enough to feel like you got a little bit of confidence. And we actually, the thing that ultimately led to it was we were interviewing Davie, who's one of my partners and the guy I started the firm with, to come join our firm. He was kind of in this no man's land where he was a little too senior to come in as like, an associate, but he'd been in-house, so he didn't really have a lot of business. And I really got to know him mostly through that interview process. It went on for a few months. I think I had met him once before, but at the end of the day, that didn't work out. And he had set up his own shop. It was just him solo. Very early. I thought he did a great job with his marketing and his branding, and I liked what he was doing, but I don't think he had a lot of business at that point, maybe a little bit. And so, it was sort of like the interview went wrong. Instead of him joining us, I was like, why don't I join you? And so I left in May of 2012 and joined Alex, and we, basically started what is the current firm now.
What's one thing that us civilians don't get about what lawyers do? How would you describe that?
I don't know. I mean, we get so much of things where, I guess there's good clients and there's bad clients from our perspective, just like in any business, right?
Yeah.
And so the clients that are the best clients are the ones that, really they've used lawyers, they've used accountants, they're used to working with professionals. They have an understanding and an appreciation for some of the things that you do. I think what a lot of people, if they're not used to doing that, they might call and say, hey, can you take a 5-minute look at this contract for me? Or can you, I don't know, just things that aren't like good fits. So, I mean, I guess it's knowing sort of how to work with professionals and sort of how the things work. And, typically if people are working with CPAs and lawyers, then they'll be good clients. If they've never worked with people like that, then most of the time they're not great clients.
For you, when you think about helping entrepreneurs, because your bulk of your business is working with entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
What about entrepreneurs have you learned that is prevalent everywhere in the entrepreneur community? What's some common themes?
Well,
that you see?
there's personality. You see different personality traits and different types of clients, and so I really like working with entrepreneurs. If I contrast that with, like, I'm doing a project for a large company now. They've got, in-house general counsel. They got bureaucracy. The money's being paid out of the company. It's not coming out of the founder's pocket. And so it's a very different type of working environment. I really like working with the smaller companies where you're working directly with, the owner or the CFO, but some very, tight-knit group of people. But characteristically, I mean, entrepreneurs are aggressive, they're risk takers. They want things right, but they don't have appetite for over lawyering. Lots of things like that. And that's very different than working for, in-house counsel at a large corporation or something like that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And when you're kind of navigating a new relationship with an entrepreneur, what are some things you have to do in your process to get to the nitty-gritty and help them faster?
I mean, I think figuring out what the real problem is always a challenge, because a lot of times people will call and they'll sort of describe what the problem is, or they'll send an email and it's kind of cryptic and it's a little bit hard to interpret what's really the problem and what's really going on. So I think the first thing is trying to understand exactly what their problem is, what's really the issue. And then if you can get to the bottom of what really the issue is, obviously a lot easier to find the solution than if you're not even quite sure what they're looking for, what they need.
When you joined EO, how are you different as a leader from before you were in EO? How have you changed?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't Mr. Super Entrepreneur when I joined, and part of the motivation to join was I wanted to be around, like, quote, real entrepreneurs. And I used to say, I hope some of them will rub off on me because I'd like to be a little more entrepreneurial, a little more of a risk taker, and things like that. And I do think that happened. I mean, I've been in Forum for 7 years. I've stopped Forum this year just basically because of the time commitment. It was just too much. But I had an outstanding Forum. I really enjoyed it. And I do think that those people sort of rubbed off on me. I mean, we had some fabulous entrepreneurs in my Forum. And I think it, affects how you think. I think it affects how you make decisions. I think it affects how, the risks that you take. It helps you think through hiring and firing and, all those sorts of things. So, I mean, I think it did shape me quite a bit, just being in the room with people that were probably more entrepreneurial than me, bigger risk takers than me. And I think it rubbed off some.
What was the biggest decision you've had to navigate in your own firm?
Um, Probably, you know, we've had to terminate a few people.
Mm.
And I would probably say, these terminations. I mean, when you're when you're a small firm and you're, not that many employees. I mean, right now we have 14 lawyers and a few staff people, so we're relatively small. Everybody knows each other. We work very closely. The offices are right there next door, and we've certainly hung on too long at times with people that maybe we should have let go sooner. But I really think the toughest thing has been the people aspects, the hiring and the terminating when that has had to happen.
Mm. So navigating having to let go of somebody that's not a fit. How do you know they're not a fit?
Our job, the biggest problem we have is details. It's just a very detail oriented job. And, some people are naturally that way. Others are not. I wasn't necessarily the most detailed person naturally, but I had to sort of learn to navigate in that world and become detailed and find tools and shortcuts and tricks. Generally when it's not a fit, it's just been, not able to handle the detail stuff, or not able to make good decisions about things. So, it's very obvious to us as lawyers when things aren't working. There's just too many mistakes in the work product.
Right.
When you're a partner in a firm, you're looking for younger people to make your life easier. And the way they make your life easier is to, you give them some work to work on and it comes back to you and it's in excellent shape and you don't have to spend that much time checking it and reviewing it and out the door. And if my life's harder because I gave you a project than easier, then, it's not working out.
How do you develop that kind of culture that you can attract the right people that have that attention to detail? What do you have to do to ensure that
Well,
happens?
I mean, I don't know it's so much about the culture as it is, that we've really learned that we're really looking for people that did, really well in law school. I mean, the people that went above and beyond and, if they did really well in their law school class and, they did bar review and they were on the journal and they did all these things, then, you can tell that that's the type of person that goes the extra mile and they're paying attention to details and they're doing things like that. So a lot of the times we're just kind of looking at their backgrounds and what they've done and how successful they've been in, undergrad and law school and things like that. And then of course, if they've been at another large firm, then typically they've been vetted by that firm and they've done, had some good training. And so, we look for either people that out of school have strong academic backgrounds or people that have been at other, law firms that have probably vetted them and trained them. But everybody knows in our, in our business, it's just, I mean, detail is probably I call it the most soul crushing part of the job because, I mean, a lot of what we do is
an attorney
fun.
No way.
I mean, it's fun to talk to someone and solve their problem. It doesn't matter what their problem is. I mean, if your problem is the most trivial thing in the world, but it's a problem to you, it's fun to solve that person's problem and help them. Mm-hmm. What's not fun is to, look at a super tedious contract and make sure it's all perfect. So we're looking for people and tools that can help do that part of the job. And so that, as partners, you're more strategic and thinking of the problem solving and things like that.
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't be a decision podcast episode without talking a little bit about AI, which is kind of touching everything.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in law and in regard to AI?
I think the AI stuff's been life-changing. I mean, in the last year, I feel like my practice has changed dramatically. I mean, it can do a lot of the things that associates would typically do and oftentimes can write better. And so, we are using lots of AI tools. We're constantly trying new tools. We bought a really expensive legal specific tool, and it's not nearly as good as the $20 a tool that we have that's sort of off the shelf. And so we're experimenting and using and trying to figure out which ones are best and, all those kinds of things. But I mean, it's good at so many things. It's really good at drafting. Now you have to know, like if it drafts a clause, like you have to be able to figure out, okay, is that really what it should say? Because it will do some screwy things.
Yeah.
And, one of the things now with AI is all the clients are taking our work product and they're throwing it in AI. And then they're, saying, oh, well, ChatGPT said this or such and such said this. And sometimes it's making great points and sometimes it's way off. And so, you got to be able to command and use the AI to make it really work for you. But I find it to be fabulous.
What's funny is the last couple of weeks, they put some press release about how they're now going to, essentially you're not supposed to use it for legal advice or health advice. And so, but I've noticed that all they did was say, when ChatGPT comes back and gives you some, now this is not legal advice, but
here's what I'll do.
Here's the answer. Yeah. And it's like, oh, you just added a disclaimer.
Right.
And then thank you for continuing. Cause not so much and I have played around with legal stuff, but for health advice, I feel like it's pretty darn awesome that I can ask things about my health that is pretty good.
Yeah.
And especially when you have, analyzing like a medical record or your blood work or, things like that, it can hallucinate some things, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's better than not knowing anything.
No, I think it's great. I mean, I don't know if it's a funny story, but a story health related. I guess it was summer before last. I had some stomach issues going on and I went, used ChatGPT, or I used one called Perplexity a lot. So I don't know which one it was, but I put in all the symptoms and my age and stuff, and it gave me what it thought the diagnosis was. I had a friend that's a doctor and I called him and he said, you really need to go to the ER for this. Cause if it is that, it can turn bad pretty quick. So I went to the ER and I told the doctor, I was like, here's what ChatGPT said, or here's what Perplexity said. He was a little skeptical and, they did x-rays and it was right. So I think he was kind of surprised, but, the tools are great. I think they do a good job and they get stuff right, get stuff wrong. But overall, I'm happy to have them. And they take away a lot of the tedious stuff.
Yeah.
To make your job more fun.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of value out of it by asking whatever AI platform I'm using to interview me one question at a time.
Yeah.
And it usually when it asks me questions, I go, well, I don't know the answer to that. Let me think about that for a minute. And then I answer in the best way that I possibly can. And and I tell it, keep asking me questions until you have enough clarity to give me a good response.
Yeah.
And that has accelerated what it actually gives me.
I love that. And I used it for, I was trying to kind of get a little bit more up to speed on the qualified small business stock thing, 1202 stuff. It's essentially a way that if you form as a C Corp and you meet all these criteria, you're the right type of company and you hold it more than 5 years. Actually, I think they shortened the time period, but if you sell, you can exclude, up to 100% of your gain and pay no tax. And so it's been a super popular, hot thing for a while. And they just, in the new tax act, they've made it even more attractive. So there's a lot of talk of that. I was trying to kind of brush up and get a little more up to speed on it. And I just had Perplexity create a learning materials and then test me, and I would answer the questions, and then, it would correct me in paragraph form, and, really, really, really good stuff.
Speed this into the future. What does it look like in 5 years after?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
in terms of the legal profession.
Yeah, no, I know. I really don't know. I mean, I think a lot about that. I mean, clearly it's able to do for me. I find that I use associates less because now I can take a tool and get something done in 15 or 20 minutes that would have taken them a lot longer. So there's a lesser need for associates. Now the need hasn't gone away. There's lots of things the tools can't do. I mean, it can't talk to people. It can have phone calls. It can't send your emails. It can't, do all that stuff. So there's still a big need for that. But I do think it's reducing the need for those, some of the younger lawyers and the skills that they're doing. So, how does that translate across the industry over time? I just don't know.
Well, I think I know how you, I think I know how you would operate. If you weren't putting a resource in a younger associate to do the legal work, you would put more resources in developing relationships with other entrepreneurs that you want to do business with. It wouldn't mean you're going to reduce your workforce necessarily, because you probably
take on more business.
Yeah, you take on more business.
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, I do find now that in a given day, I can get a lot more work done. And so that means you can take on more work. Yeah. I mean, the other thing I find super helpful is, it's so critical to get your prompts right.
Yeah.
So I'll have like 2 tools open, and I'm asking this tool how to write the prompt for this tool. And it writes the prompts so much better than I ever
Is
could.
it Prompt Cowboy?
I haven't seen that.
Prompt Cowboy is really good. So promptcowboy.ai, and Marty Reed, my forum mate, created one called deepprompt.pro. And it will take just a really basic prompt and create this really in-depth prompt.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just do
Same
that
thing.
with, I'll have ChatGPT and Perplexity and ask ChatGPT, hey, write a prompt for Perplexity, and ask this. And by the way, which model of Perplexity should I use?
Right.
Something like that.
Have you started using Comet?
I was so excited about Comet because I was a very early Perplexity adopter, and I got it early, and I don't know. I just didn't. I haven't. Maybe I'm not using Comet right, but I haven't been blown away by Comet, and I've really stopped using it. So I don't know if I'm missing something, and there's some great stuff out there, but I haven't.
What's Comet supposed to do?
It's a browser that's by Perplexity.
Oh yeah. I downloaded that and I got stuck and I didn't keep using it.
Yeah.
Well, they keep talking about it being agentic and how it will sort of do things for you, but I just haven't.
The first thing I did is it's like there's an assistant button up in the upper right. And I thought, well, I've been using Chrome for a while. So I said, import all of my bookmarks from Chrome into Comet. And bam, they were all there in the same format that I had. And I could have done that by exporting them from Chrome and then importing them into Comet, but it did it for me. And then you can use it. I mean, that's basically all I've done with it. I mean, I just like it better I'm not sure exactly why.
Yeah.
And partly because instead of doing search on Google, I'm using Perplexity for search.
It'll start running. Not only it'll operate the browser and go do its thing.
Yeah.
And you can tell it how to do it. Yeah. I need to spend more time on it. I almost, doesn't it feel like we need to almost dedicate time to learn all the tools every single freaking week?
But they're changing so fast.
I know.
Whatever, we're just in the middle of this massive change and shift, and it's super exciting. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's tremendous tools that I don't know anything about at this point, but
yeah, there's no roadmap because nobody knows where we're going. Yeah. And it's I like to talk to people about it because I'll usually pick up on one or two things. Like Prompt Cowboy, for example, one of our forum mates, Hunter Ingram, mentioned it, and that we all started using it immediately and became much more successful using.
So how would it do sort of the same thing that I'm talking about if I just had ChatGPT open and said, write a prompt for Perplexity for this? Is that what Prompt Cowboy is sort of doing, or how's it different?
Yeah. So, so for example, I could ask it, hey, give me 5 ideas for a blog post on branding. I own an agency. I would give it that, and then it will create a really complicated prompt and give it information that the GPT, whichever one I'm using, already knows about me. And it formats it in a very unique way. You'll have to try it out, and it will give it it defines the task more succinctly, and then you can go into Prompt Cowboy and read this long prompt and go, oh, I want to change this thing, and I want to change that, and then you copy it and put it into ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever, and it just completely changes the output that it gives you. You have to try it out.
What it's making me think? Like, if you fast forward to 10 years from now, you would probably tell yourself to master AI right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You'd probably tell your younger self, get on it immediately.
Yeah. Well,
I've been playing around, but I haven't committed to it like a mastery.
One of the things, though, I find frustrating about it is, I can be working on, let's say I'm working on a specific article of a contract, and so I've fed the language in and it's given me some suggestions, and I put it in my Word document and I edit it a little bit and I put it back in. And it doesn't, like, I feel like I could put the same paragraph in 10 times and it will keep changing the paragraph. And I'm like, stop changing the paragraph.
Right.
Only
Yes.
give me a change if it's really necessary. Stop wordsmithing the document. And it will just continue.
Yeah,
So the same thing, like clients will get a document back and then they'll put it in ChatGPT. ChatGPT will 100% of the time say, oh, you should be concerned about this or this or this. And it will never stop. And so, like there's a little bit of frustration just with the,
Yeah, I'm working on a list of don'ts. Don't use an M dash. Stop that bullshit.
Or the emojis.
Yeah.
and it'll screw the formatting up. I mean, sometimes it gives you this wonderful language and then you put it in your document and then it takes longer to fix the formatting.
Yeah.
than it did so it's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good.
And the other thing is SEO is dying. And your partner's doing a lot of blogging, which is great because
Used to, yeah.
yeah, well that if you're doing long form content, that's way more important now than doing the old traditional SEO where you're just kind of trying to work the words into you want longer questions for titles of blog posts or content that you're creating. You got it. And there's a tool actually I found on WhatsApp. There's an EO channel for marketing agencies. And there's somebody that created a tool that will tell you, they'll look at your website and tell you, these are the most likely questions that people will ask a GPT about your industry.
Yeah.
And so it gave me, I think it was about 50 different questions that people would ask about branding and marketing.
Yeah.
And then we can take that and write content around those questions that people ask. So if people are already asking those questions,
if you want them to find you. So
exactly.
well, I think typically people that find us through an internet search, they're not always the best clients. So, people are always like, SEO, you got to get your SEO up. And I'm like, I don't know if I want people finding us that way.
I've taken those calls before.
Yeah. Those don't work out. I'm looking for somebody that came from, an accountant or, an existing client, not from somebody that found me on the internet. Although I will say recently, multiple times I have had people call and, we always ask, well, how did you find us? And oh, it was ChatGPT recommended you or something like that. So that
feels good.
It does. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Well,
you need to pay him a referral fee.
The disqualifying them as quickly as possible is the thing. I tend toward, I'll back up. So we decided we were a marketing agency. Most of the people that we would get referred to us were kind of desperate. They thought they knew exactly what they needed. And Amy kind of mentioned this. We decided to change and say that we're a branding agency. And what we found is that we get more sophisticated clients who have more money and they've got a lot more patience and they know their brand is not right. So instead of trying to spend money to get new business, they're more like, hey, let's make sure that we're telling the right story.
Yeah.
And then they're just better to work with.
Yeah.
They don't, it's kind of like what you described where people come to you and go, hey, I need this thing fixed.
Well, yeah. Or just take
not
a
like,
quick
hey,
look
I got
at
a problem.
Hey, I drafted this myself. Will you take a quick look at it?
Right.
Or something like that.
Instead of, hey, I got this problem. Tell me what to do.
Yeah. And then you're like, I can't even get a file open and do internal processes for, it's just some amount of level that you just can't deal with.
Yep.
What would be, what is like growing your firm look like for you? How long do you want to keep doing this?
I mean, first of all, I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old child. So, probably a long time. I started the family thing a little bit late, but I mean, right now I have so much energy and enthusiasm for it. So I don't have any kind of plan to slow down. I'm 53. I mean, my plan would be to go pretty hard until I'm 70. And then I don't think I'll ever retire, but I'd like to work 3 or 4 days a week in my 70s. And I also think it, keeps you mentally sharp. It keeps you cognitive, and
Yeah.
so I plan to be in it for the long term, and it gets better all the time. I mean, really, the AI tools have made it a much more enjoyable experience, just taking me out of doing some of the detail and being able to do some of the things that I didn't want to do for me. So I like my job more now than I ever have in my past.
Mm. Mm.
As far as growing the firm, I think we're not trying to get big, but you sort of have to grow some. I mean, we have two. Me and Alex started the firm. We have two younger partners that have been partners for 2 or 3 years now, and they're doing a fantastic job in growing their businesses. But at some point, other associates will become partners, and so as they become partners, like, you have to keep backfilling more associates, and so there's just sort of a natural growth progression. So it's not, I don't say, oh, we're scaling. Like, it doesn't feel like that. But I think adding, a couple of lawyers a year would be, 1 or 2 a year would be a realistic goal.
Yeah.
So when you started with your partner, how did you decide who did what?
In terms of the practice areas, or
yeah,
what?
just like, who was focusing on what in terms of.
Well, we were both focusing on our clients' needs. I think we had more alignment at that time in terms of what we were doing. He really decided to go specialize in a couple specific things. So he said, I want to do private fund work, and I want to do startup and VC work. And so he really made those his two focus areas. And he built a lot of his practice really through blogging. He started blogging, 12 years ago, something like that, and was really good at it, and really built up somewhat of a national audience. And so he was attracting clients from different places. Mine was much more local and much more based on, those personal type relationships. And, you sort of kind of go where the client needs are. I had one client sort of early on that probably was a little bit just a friend who had some early success, and his company grew and he needed lots of help. And so I would sort of go where he went. I would do the things that he needed help with. And then over time, you just, develop your areas of expertise and kind of dig into those.
So if you were sitting in front of another EO member who just started EO, what advice would you give them to give them an opportunity to experience more of EO?
Well, I mean, I guess, early on I was pretty involved in a lot of the, besides forum, I would go to a lot of the EO events. And so, I mean, there's fantastic content out there. So I guess my advice would be to go to as many events as you possibly can and just get to know people. I don't go to near as many now as I used to, but still go to some. And I guess the advice would just be get out there, go to the events, meet people, and make their relationships.
Awesome. Casey, thanks so much. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
If you are an entrepreneur here in Nashville, Tennessee, and you're looking to go to the next level, maybe you're looking for a place where you're not feeling alone, like in a community, you could be with EO at eonashville.com, where you can discover how over 300 entrepreneurs in Nashville come together every single month in a small group of 8 people called a forum and help each other grow and navigate all the important decisions of an entrepreneur's life. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.